My name is Claire Morgan. I'm a colonel in the United States Air Force, with over 2 decades of service in strategic mobility and logistics. But to my family, I might as well be a glorified office worker, someone who files forms and answers phones in a nameless government building. They don't mean harm, not really. It's just easier for them to understand my career as something small, something neat, and non-threatening. At Thanksgiving, dinners and birthday calls, I'm Claire, the one who works for the military, followed by a shrug or a quick change of topic. I stopped trying to explain years ago. The more I tried to tell them about what I actually do, the more glazed their eyes became. Eventually, I gave up. Let them think I shuffle papers. There's a strange kind of loneliness in being invisible like that. Not physically, not socially, but existentially. When the people closest to you can't see your purpose, your pride, your identity, it wears on you in ways you don't realize until much later. It's not about medals or recognition. It's about not having to shrink yourself every time you walk into a room with people who raised you. People who think they know you best, when really, they know the least. So I let them keep their version of me. It kept things peaceful. But deep down, there was always a quiet ache. A need, not to be applauded, just to be seen. Really seen, just once. Most people think of the military as boots on the ground or pilots in the sky. They picture combat uniforms, medals, and salutes. What they don't picture are the long nights spent coordinating flight routes through contested airspace, negotiating cargo manifests with allied nations, or balancing the weight of a mission on a spreadsheet where one wrong entry could cost lives. That's my world. I don't carry a rifle, and I don't sit in a cockpit, but every aircraft that leaves a runway with humanitarian aid, weapons systems, or personnel depends on decisions I've made. I've rerouted entire fleets in the middle of the night because a diplomatic window closed. I've had to predict political tension like weather patterns. I've had to be right. Over and over again. In silence. My job sits in the seams of the machine. Strategic mobility isn't glamorous. It's not meant to be. It's meant to be precise, invisible, and effective. We move the muscle of the U.S. military across continents without ever making the headlines. If a mission goes off perfectly, no one remembers who planned the logistics. If it fails, they ask for names. I've coordinated airlift missions into disaster zones before the media even knew there was a disaster. I've handled last-minute diversions due to volcanic ash, civil unrest, or hostile radar pings. I've gotten wounded soldiers out of combat zones under blackout conditions, with nothing but a radio and a 12-minute window. These aren't war stories. They're just my Tuesday mornings. But none of that shows up in a family photo album. It doesn't fit into a 2-minute answer at Christmas dinner. So when my brother shrugs and says, "Claire works in some kind of military office," no one challenges him. They nod, they smile, and they move on to something easier to understand. What they don't know is how many commanders depend on my team's precision, how many lives hinge on routes I've approved or access I've secured. How many times has the difference between chaos and control come down to a checklist with my initials on it? They don't see the uniform because it doesn't look like what they expect. But make no mistake, I wear one, and it carries weight. Adam was 3 years older than me, but he'd been winning since we were kids. Star athlete, top of his class, early admission to an Ivy League school. He graduated with a finance degree, and by 24 was already making more than our dad ever had. Wall Street loved guys like Adam. Confident, sharp suits. A handshake that made people think he could solve anything. Our parents ate it up. Especially Dad. He used to beam when Adam talked about his bonus structure or the new apartment with floor-to-ceiling windows. I, on the other hand, once got a polite nod when I mentioned receiving the Air Force Meritorious Service Medal. Adam never missed a chance to remind me who the successful sibling was. He wasn't cruel exactly, just efficient. At Thanksgiving, he'd swirl his overpriced scotch and say things like, "You know, Claire, with your logistics background, you could be killing it in the private sector. Amazon is hiring warehouse managers." Then he'd laugh like it was a compliment. My mom once asked him to stop comparing us. He smiled and said, "I'm just trying to help her see her potential." What he meant was, I wasn't living up to his standards. My 20-year military career couldn't hold a candle to his brokerage firm's quarterly report. At family dinners, he'd perform, talking about vacation homes, stock splits, and ski trips in Aspen. Then he'd turn to me, lean back, and go, "So, still in that job with the, planes? Delivering packages?" I'd smile. "Still flying," I'd say. Or at least helping others fly. It never landed. Not really. Not in the way his words did. The worst part was how natural it felt for him to take the spotlight. Everyone just let him do it. Even me. Because arguing with Adam meant looking petty. It meant explaining why the world didn't need another hedge fund manager as much as it needed secure supply chains in war zones. But it was easier for them to understand his money than my missions. I wore practical clothes. Drove a 10-year-old Honda. Lived alone. No flashy Instagram reels or designer handbags to show off. I looked average. And that made it easier for Adam to pretend I was. The week before our family trip to Germany, he called to confirm the flight details. "I booked business class for me and Kelly," he said. "Got mom and dad upgraded too, and the twins are in premium. You're in economy." Then, after a pause, he added, "Economy suits you. It keeps you humble, right?" He laughed like it was a harmless joke. I stayed silent. That was his thing, making backhanded remarks wrapped in charm. He needed to win every comparison, even ones I never entered. To him, the economy wasn't just a seat. It was a statement, a line in the sand that said, "I'm up here, you're down there." What he didn't realize, what he could never grasp, was that I wasn't competing. I was building something bigger. He just didn't have the range to see it. In 20 years of service, I built something Adam could never buy. Not a fortune, a network, quiet, strategic, and powerful in ways that money couldn't touch. Port authorities in Singapore returned my calls at midnight. Base commanders in Germany who'd reroute traffic without question. NATO planners, foreign ministers, and airline executives. People who understood the stakes and trusted me because I never missed. I wasn't famous, but I was known where it mattered. When things broke, when rules had to bend, or timelines had to vanish, I was the person they called. I once secured emergency access through restricted airspace in under an hour because I'd spent years cultivating the right relationships. I had standing invitations to coordination briefings that most civilians didn't know existed. I could pick up the phone and shift an aircraft across continents. Not because I was loud, because I was consistent. None of that ever made it into our family group texts. It couldn't. Some of it was classified. Some of it just wasn't explainable to people who measured worth by LinkedIn titles and condo square footage. And honestly, I didn't want to explain it. Operational security wasn't just a rule, it was a shield. As long as they thought I was a mid-tier bureaucrat, they never asked questions that would put either of us in danger. There was safety in being underestimated. Freedom, even. I didn't need them to clap for me. I just needed space to do my job, uninterrupted. The irony was that while Adam was chasing influence in boardrooms, I was coordinating efforts that could shift regional stability. He had a corner office. I had global reach. But I kept it quiet. Because if you've ever done work that actually matters, you learn the value of silence. I wasn't hiding. I was protecting something bigger than ego. And if that meant letting my family believe I shuffled papers while I moved nations, so be it. One day, I knew, the truth would surface. Maybe by accident. Maybe because I let it. But until then, I stayed still. The kind of still that comes with control. As soon as my dad mentioned the family trip to Germany, Adam took over like it was a corporate acquisition. Within days, he'd flooded the group chat with spreadsheets, flight comparisons, hotel reviews, and a link to a travel itinerary app we were all expected to download. The subject lines of his emails were pure theater, making it special for Dad. First-class memories. Let's do this right. What he meant was, I'm in charge because I'm footing the bill. He booked business class tickets for himself and his wife, Kelly. Upgraded my parents without being asked. Got the twins into premium economy and left me out until the last minute. Then he casually dropped a line in one of his updates. Claire, let me know if you're cool with the economy. It's what was available. And honestly, you're used to that kind of travel, right? Every detail of the trip came with a layer of control. The hotel was 5-star, naturally, and perfectly located for shopping and sightseeing, which meant close to luxury outlets. Dinner reservations were locked in at restaurants that required dress codes. And of course, Adam handled every deposit in advance. His emails always ended with a wink. No worries, I've got this. Consider it my gift to the family. Except it didn't feel like a gift. It felt like a stage. Like we were all being cast in roles for his personal highlight reel. And mine, clearly, was a supporting character. Low budget. Minimal lines. I watched the whole thing unfold like a slow burn. Everyone thanked him, praised his generosity, and applauded the effort. I said little. A thumbs up here. A thanks, Adam there. Because I already knew something he didn't. Something I hadn't yet decided whether to use. But with each smug update, each not-so-subtle jab about who could afford what, he made the choice easier. He didn't just want to plan the trip. He wanted to own it. And everyone on it. We got to the airport early, Adam insisted. He wanted everything to go smoothly, which really meant he wanted to be in control from start to finish. He marched us to the check-in counter, passports in hand, narrating every move like a tour guide who'd done this 100 times. The agent handed him the boarding passes, and that's when the show began. Mom, Dad, business class, he said proudly, as if he were handing out Oscars. Kelly and I are right across from you. The boys are in premium, with more legroom, better meals. Oh, then he turned to me. He held my boarding pass between 2 fingers, just high enough for everyone to see. Economy, he said with a smirk. He didn't just hand it to me. He gestured toward the far end of the terminal. The line for economy is already wrapping around the corner, Claire. It's a cattle call today. You'd better hustle if you want overhead bin space. He laughed, looking at our parents for approval. Seriously, go now. We'll be in the lounge having champagne. See you in Munich. Oh, well? My mother looked away. Uncomfortable. My dad pulled out his phone, pretending to check something. A couple next to us raised their eyebrows. No one said anything. Not even me. I took the pass from him. Thanks, Adam, I said quietly. No emotion. No pushback. Just the kind of silence that feels like steel under glass. He turned his back to me, ushering the family toward the priority lane. All right, everyone. VIPs this way. I stood there for a moment, holding that economy ticket. I could see the line he was talking about. Hundreds of people. Chaos. Stress. But I wasn't going to that line. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my official phone. I dialed a number I hadn't used for personal reasons in a decade. This is Colonel Morgan. I'm at the terminal. Is the asset in position? Affirmative, Colonel. We have eyes on you. Approaching now. I hung up. Adam was about 10 feet away, unhooking the velvet rope to the VIP lane, when the terminal doors slid open with a sudden, heavy whoosh. 2 military police officers in full-dress uniforms stepped in. They didn't look around. They walked with absolute purpose, clearing a path through the crowd. Behind them walked a major in a crisp service dress uniform, carrying a briefcase. The crowd parted. The silence rippled outward as people stopped dragging their luggage to stare. Adam saw them coming straight toward his group. He immediately assumed the role of a helpful citizen. He grabbed my arm and pulled me back. Whoa, Claire, move! Get out of the way! Someone important is coming through. He tried to usher Mom and Dad to the side. Make a hole, folks. Let them pass, he announced loudly, beaming at the officers, probably hoping for a nod of acknowledgement. The major walked right past Adam, without even glancing at him. He stopped directly in front of me. The 2 MPs snapped to attention, flanking me on either side. creating a protective wall between me and the rest of the terminal. The major squared his shoulders and rendered a sharp, perfect salute. "Colonel Morgan," he said, his voice carrying clearly over the silent crowd. I returned the salute slowly, deliberately. "Major." "Ma'am, your transport is fueled and prepped on the tarmac. We have clearance for immediate departure. The General sends his regards and requested that you be briefed on the summit agenda during the flight." Adam froze. His hand was still half raised, in a wave that no one had returned. His mouth was open. Kelly dropped her carry-on bag. My parents stared, their eyes wide, darting between me and the officers. "Colonel?" Adam whispered. It came out like a squeak. I ignored him. I handed my economy boarding pass to the major. "Please dispose of this," I said calmly. "I won't be needing it." He took it and handed it to one of the MPs without looking at it. "Yes, ma'am. If you follow us, we have a secure lane ready." I adjusted my bag and finally turned to Adam. He looked small. He looked confused. He looked like a man who had brought a calculator to a gunfight. "You guys enjoy the champagne," I said, offering him the same polite smile he'd given me for 20 years. "I'll see you in Munich. Try not to get stuck in customs." I turned my back on them. The MPs stepped in formation around me, and we walked. Not to the economy line. Not even to the VIP line. We walked straight through the restricted access doors that required a retinal scan. As the doors closed behind me, the last thing I saw was Adam, standing in the middle of the terminal, holding his business class tickets like they were worthless pieces of paper. The private transport was a Gulfstream with military markings, sleek and menacingly fast. The interior wasn't just luxury, it was a command center. Secure comms, satellite uplinks, and a steward who handed me a briefing packet and a hot espresso before I even sat down. This wasn't just a ride, it was a reminder. As we reached cruising altitude, I opened my laptop. I didn't text them. I didn't need to. I knew exactly what was happening down below. They were shuffling into line, fighting for bin space, sitting in seats that even in business class were just seats. Halfway across the Atlantic, my phone buzzed with a notification from the family group chat. Adam had posted a photo of his champagne glass. "Business class life," the caption read. But this time, there were no likes, no replies, because everyone knew he was drinking champagne in a seat he bought. I was reviewing classified NATO intelligence in a jet the government sent for me. We were not the same. When I landed in Munich, a diplomatic car was waiting on the tarmac. No customs line, no baggage claim. I was at the hotel, showered, and changed before Adam's flight had even touched down. I was sitting in the lobby lounge, reading a book, when they finally dragged themselves in 3 hours later. They looked exhausted, disheveled. Adam's suit was wrinkled. The twins were cranky. Adam saw me first. He stopped dead in his tracks. I looked fresh, rested, and calm. He walked over, leaving the bags with the bellhop. He didn't have a witty remark this time. He didn't have a smirk. "Who are you?" he asked. It wasn't an insult. It was a genuine question. I closed my book and looked up at him. "I'm the logistics officer, Adam. I move things. Sometimes, I move myself." My father walked up behind him. He looked at me with a mixture of shock and something else. Pride. Maybe. But mostly awe. "Colonel?" he said softly. "Since when?" "Since always, Dad," I said. "You just never asked." That dinner was different. Adam didn't talk about his bonus. He didn't make jokes about my job. In fact, he barely spoke at all. He just listened. For 20 years, he thought he was the main character because he was the loudest. He thought money was the only currency that mattered. But that day at the airport, he learned a hard lesson. Power isn't about what you can buy. It's about what you can command. I flew home economy a week later. Adam offered to upgrade me. He practically begged to buy me a better seat. "No thanks," I told him. "I like the middle seat. Keeps me humble." I sat in the back of the plane, surrounded by strangers, eating pretzels out of a bag. and I smiled the whole way home. Because I didn't need a private jet to know who I was anymore. And more importantly, neither did they. I realized that the greatest freedom wasn't in the VIP lane. It was in the silence of knowing that you could summon the VIP lane whenever you wanted, but choosing not to. That is power. And for the first time in my life, I didn't just have it, I felt it.